page 55B4.
Okay, so the last thing we were learning is, of course, that the Menachos cannot be Chamer. And we started to discuss Klal Prat HaMeruchakim Zeh Mizeh. If you have a general rule and then you have a specific, but they're not right next to each other. So does the rule of Klal Prat apply? Klal means you have a general statement, and then you have a detail. So we say that the general statement is only referring to the detail. So an example that we're trying to use, that you can use a Klal Prat HaMeruchakim, even though one is in Vayikra, a general statement, one is in Parshas Tzav, so distant. And we're going to say that the whole general rule is only referring to that one detail. Was referring to the sa'ir of a nasi. If a king does an avera, he has to bring a different carbon. Not a regular chatas, which is a kispa, sheep. He brings a sa'ir, a male goat. Now, referring to that, the pasuk says that he slaughters it on the north side, in the same place that the Eily is slaughtered. It's a chatas. He slaughters the same place as the Eily. So we were discussing there that maybe you should only slaughter this chatas in the north, not other chatas. So we bring in a third pasuk that says that we said, what do you need to say that for? We already know that a chatas is slaughtered in the same place as a Eila. So we said, well, it's teaching me that it's possible. Right here, it's teaching me that if you don't slaughter it in the right place, it's possible. Then we said, but maybe it's only this and not others. So we said, no, we have a third pasuk that says that a chatas is slaughtered on the north. So we're discussing a chatas on the north. Okay, so we said, you see that you could have thought that even though one is in Parshas Vayikra, where it says that a chatas is slaughtered in the same place as a... it's actually in Parshas Tzav. Parshas Tzav, it says that a chatas is slaughtered in the same place as an Eila, which is the north. In Parshas Vayikra, it discusses the Kohen Gadol's. You see that you could have used the Klal Prat. So Rashi says it's not a Klal Prat we were using. Anyway, that's not a Klal Prat, because that's a Prat Klal. What we were discussing there is it says you slaughter it. In the it, Shachat Oisai, could have told me that I only slaughter it, but not any other sacrifice. It comes along the third pasuk and says that no, you slaughter all other sacrifice, all other chatais on the north. We're starting from. Yeah. So let's go back 2 lines over here. Okay. Bahashta. You see the Bahashta. It's the last 3 words of the wide line. First wide line. Bahashta nafklei mevshachres achatas. And now that we know v'shachres achatas that you have to slaughter all chatais on the north, oisei lemutei mai. So what is oisei excluding? It says lemutei oisei batzafan vein sar nachshon batzafan. That the sar of nachshon, that means that one time on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, when Nachshon brought his sacrifice, and the following 12 days after that, those sacrifices did not need to be brought to be slaughtered on the north. If you notice, there was a parenthesis that I skipped that says Nachshon v'shachar Pesach Siman. That's a mnemonic to recognize all the cases of the Gemara that we're going to. So the Gemara uses these mnemonics. It's incredible how we know today that very vivid pictures we remember, like for crazy amounts of time. They did these tests with people, 10,000 images. It took 5 days to do these studies in the universities, and the people remembered weeks later. They remembered 70%. It's like incredible, you know. So what they tell you to remember, the way to remember, you see the siman. It says Nachshon Shachareif b'Pesach. Right. So you're imagining there to remember this, that there's Nachshon is slaughtering a bird on Pesach, and that's going to help you remember the following pieces of Gemara that are right. Okay. So what are we learning from here? We're saying that Nachshon's Karban and the other 12 Nesiim did not need to slaughter their sacrifice on the north. Why? Sal Kedai Tchamina could have entered my mind to say, Hoyel Visrabi, Linyan Smicha Lisrabi, Nam Linyan Tzafin, that I know that he needed to do Smicha, which sounds like it's a regular Chatas. He had to lean on it before it was slaughtered. So I would think that it needs to be done on the north as well. Kamash Malan. So the pasuk by the Nasi, which is interesting, it's called a Nasi, is a king that does Avera. A Nasi has to slaughter it B'tzafin, but the Nasiim that had that inauguration offering on Rosh Chodesh Nisan in the desert did not need to do it B'tzafin. They needed to do smicha, but they didn't need to do it. Okay, this is where we're holding. Baruch.
Amen.
Ooh, Jimmy's here. Woo!
Very nice. You're right on time. We're just going over what we were doing here. Smicha gufa minalan. How do we know that Menachem, when he brought a sacrifice in the desert, that he needed to lean on the animal? Tanya. It was taught in a brisa. It says, "V'samach yadi al reish asar." By the Nasi, the carbon of the Nasi, if the Nasi does a sin, so he has to lean on it. Now, it didn't need to say al reish asar. It could have used the pronoun. V'samach yadi al reishai. The fact that it says sa'ir, that's l'rabbi sar nachshem l'smicha. That extra word is teaching me that it's including the sar of nachshem, that you needed to lean on it. Nachshon ben Aminadab. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That's the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is always Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Eily. Not Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Eily. The student of Rabbi Akiva. Reb Shimon Aimer. Reb Shimon is Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. It's his friend. Aimer. That l'Rabbi Sar Avedis Kechavim L'Smicha. No. Not Nachshon ben Aminadab. It's coming to tell me that there is another Sa'ir that if there's a violation of Avodah Zarah, if the congregation violates Avodah Zarah based on a ruling of the Sanhedrin that they think that a certain service is not prohibited, so they bring a goat, so you need to do smicha on that. What are we trying to get from here? We're trying to figure out, we could have thought that you need to slaughter Nachshon's carbon on the north, because you have to do smicha. If you have to do smicha, then it's probably a regular chatas, you should do it on the north. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, we have a good answer. That because we could have thought, because you have to do smicha, we could have thought also on the north. Comes along the Shachar Eisai, then no, you don't do it on the north. Problem is, Maskef la Ravina. Ravina has a question. We jump now to the end of the Amiraim. Teinach la Rabbi Yehuda. You have an answer according to Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rabbi Yehuda, Nachshon needs smicha. You could have thought it needs to be on the north. But la Rab Shimon, Ma'yekal Meimar. But according to Reb Shimon, you don't have a good answer. According to Reb Shimon, Nachshon didn't need smicha. Nachshon's carbon didn't need smicha. So you didn't need to lean on the sacrifice before it was slaughtered. So why would I have thought that it needed to be on the north? So if I don't think that it needs to be on the north, what is V'shachad Eisai coming to teach me? So Amalei Marzutra, Breder of Mari L'Ravina. Marzutra, Breder of Mari responds. He says, L'Rabbi Yehuda Nami. According to Rabbi Yehuda also, it's not a good answer. Because my dis Rabbi is Rabbi, my delayis Rabbi leis Rabbi. What you've included is smicha. What you didn't include was anything else. So we only know smicha because you taught it to me, smicha. You never taught me anything. How did you teach me smicha? Because it has an extra word, sa'ir. It could have said, v'samach yadei al reishai. It says, v'samach yadei al reish ha'sa'ir. That tells me that Nachshon's carbon needs smicha. So smicha I know, but you don't know anything else. So why would I think that I would have had to do Nachshon's carbon on the north? My only comparison to a regular chatas is what you told me, which the Torah tells me, which is smicha. But you never told me tzafan, so leave it out. You don't. Notice, you only need to exclude it if you would have said it first that you need to exclude it. But you never said it, so you don't need to exclude it. You don't need Oisai. Maybe you want to tell me. Eily, if the pasuk did not exclude the north, I would have said that you learn it from a binyanav. A binyanav is a comparison. It's like this. It's like my students in school do a binyanav all the time. How come he's getting that? Why don't I get that? It's a binyanav. And then you have to answer. You say, 1 second. He got 100 on the test. He was here early. You say, oh, okay, so it's not a good comparison. But the binyanav is, let's just compare it. We'll say it's the same. So let's say that just like every chatas has smicha, or every chatas has the north, so too this should be on the north as well. We'll do a binyanav, a comparison. So if we'll say that we should do a binyanav, a comparison, that Nachshon's korban should be slaughtered on the north of the altar, and the north of the courtyard. So then, if that's the case, then smicha gufei lishtik kraminei b'teis binyanav. So why did I need a pasuk to teach me smicha? Why did I need the extra sa'ir? I could have done a binyanav, a comparison from leaning on it. In other words, we have a regular chatas. The rules by the regular chatas is that it's slaughtered on the north, and you have to lean your hands on it. Comes along the special sacrifice of Nachshon. Do you have to slaughter it on the north? Do you have to lean your hands on it before? Does Nachshon need to lean on it before? So we could have done a comparison. We'll say, well, it's a chatas, so you have to lean on it, and you have to do the slaughter it on the north. Then I would have a special pasuk that would tell me that no, this one doesn't go on the north because of Eily. So, but you didn't do that. You didn't do a binyanav. You brought a pasuk to teach me smicha. What was the pasuk? It says v'samach yad al reish hasoyer. You had an extra word. That means the comparison for you wasn't enough. You needed an extra word to tell it to me. Okay, so that means we're not going to do comparisons. So then why should I think that it should be done on the north? You never told me that it should be on the north. You only told me that I have to do smicha. So why do I need Eily to exclude it from the north if you never said it? Rather, you can't do a comparison because I can't learn temporary sacrifices. I can't learn rather generational sacrifices from temporary sacrifices. So the same way you didn't use it for smicha, a comparison, you also won't use it further to learn that it needs to be on the north, and then exclude it from being done on the north. Again, all we're discussing here is an extra word in the sacrifice of a nasi that sins. It says v'shachat Eily. You slaughter it in the same place that you slaughter the Eila, which is on the north. Why does it say it? What's it coming to exclude? We thought that it was coming to exclude all other sacrifices, that this is the only sacrifice, only chatas that's done on the north besides for the Eila. But we brought an extra verse that says, no, it's not true. You slaughter all chatas on the north. So now our question is, so why did you need Eily to say it? What's it excluding? You said maybe it's excluding the sa'ir of Nachshon. That does not need to be on the north. We said that no, why should it exclude that? We never thought it was on the north. So Ella, rather, we're going to try another, this is a second attempt. And remember what we said in the mnemonic, Nachshon shachat oif b'Pesach. Nachshon slaughtered a bird. So now we're up to the slaughtering. Sheichet. Rather, what we're talking about is that the sacrifice needs to be on the north. But where does the sheichet stand? The sheichet doesn't need to be on the north. As if there was an imaginary line in between the north and the south of the in the temple courtyard. The sacrifice could be on the north, and the sheichet could be on the south, and he stretches his hand out and slaughters it. That's what we're learning. Eily, it needs to be on the north, the animal, but not the sheichet. So the Gemara asks, we know that already. Eily can't be teaching that to me. Why? Midir Rabbi nafka. We know it from Rabbi. Now, we had Rabbi before, but I don't know a lot about him. I tried to look it up this morning. And he actually wasn't in the encyclopedia of... I didn't look in the Seder Adoros. I looked in Toldos Tanaim B'Amirayim. And he wasn't there. They have a Rabbi that's a student of Rabbi Yochanan, but this is a Tana. The Tanya was taught in a Brisa. Usually. Actually, you know what? It may be the same one. Brises can include early Amirayim. Rabbi Shua ben Levi is in the Brisa. And Rabbi Shua ben Levi is a Tana. It's an Amirah, but he's in the Brisa. The Brises were edited slightly after the Mishnah. Okay. The Tanya Rabbi says, "B'shachar Eisei al Yerach HaMizbeach Tzafayna." You slaughtered it. This is one of the first verses in Vayikra, Pasuk Yud Aleph, in Sefer Vayikra, Perek Aleph, Pasuk Yud Aleph. It says over there that when you slaughter the Eily, you slaughter it on the north, at the edge of the Mizbeach on the north. Ma Talmud Laimar, what's it coming to teach me? V'shachar Eisei. Lefisha Matzino, because we find b'makabel shemid batzafin. B'makabel batzafin, because I know that the one that's accepting the blood, he is supposed to stand on the north, and he receives the blood on the north. V'imamad badar makibel batzafin pasul, but if he stands on the south and he receives the blood on the north, it's not good, unless he needs to be on the north as well. Yachalaf zakein, maybe also the sheichet needs to be on the north. Talmud Leimer Oisai batzafin b'lei sheichet tzarich liyos shemid batzafin. Only the animal, not the sheikh.
מה ההבדל בין חטאת רגילה לחטאת נשיא? ולמדנו מקודם שהנשיא, החטאת רגילה, הוא עומד, הראש נתון צפונה, והוא יכול גם להושיט את היד ולשחוט.
Right.
So what is different between נשיא?
So far we don't really have any difference. What we're looking for is a repetition. By the nasi it says that you need to slaughter it in the place where the Eila is slaughtered. And we're asking, why do you need to say that? It's a regular chatas. So we're thinking that maybe it's coming to exclude something.
Okay.
So we're saying what it's coming to teach us is that the sheichet doesn't need to be there. We said we know that already from the Eila. By the Eila, which that's the origin of slaughtering things on the north, the Holy of Holy sacrifices are slaughtered on the north. We know that already, that only the animal needs to be on the north, but the sheichet could stand in the south and stretch his hand out and slaughter him. Rather, we're going to need a third attempt. Now, if you remember, we said over here that Nachshon slaughtering a bird on Pesach. Okay, we're up to the bird. Now we're going to see that maybe the Isai is coming to exclude a bird. That only an animal needs to be on the north, but not a bird. The animal, the sire of the nasi, the goat, needs to be slaughtered on the north. But if there's a bird that's being brought as a sacrifice, it doesn't need to be brought on the north. Because it could have entered my mind to say, it definitely needs to be slaughtered on the north. The bird that's done malika, the kohen puts his fingernail through it. For sure needs to be on the north. It's even a kal v'chaimer. Kal v'chaimer means if this needs to be on the north, for sure the bird. Why? What is the kal v'chaimer? Kal v'chaimer means ben sign from a regular animal. Ma ben sign, just like an animal shlei kava kohen. A ben sign, an animal does not need to be a kohen that's shechting it. In all the services of the temple, you need a kohen, except for shechita by an animal. That was the discussion when Chana dropped off Shmuel on the first day. Remember, in the Haftarah, Rosh Hashanah, she drops off Shmuel, and he's 3 years old, and he sees that everyone's running around. They're looking for a kohen to slaughter the sacrifice, and Shmuel says, "Why are they running around? He's 3 years old." He says, "We need a kohen." He says, "You don't need a kohen." It says, "V'zaraka kohen." It says. It doesn't say v'shachar HaKayin. You don't need a Kayin to slaughter. So they run to Eily HaKayin. They ask him, "There's this kid here. He's telling us things." So they say, "Yeah, he's right, but he's paskening in front of the teacher, and I'm the teacher. So he's chayiv misa." So Chana starts to cry. Alanar says, "Palalti, I'm the one that was here. You promised me the child. This is the child. I'm bringing him back." So. He was let live, but that was the story of the who has to do the shechita. So by an animal, you don't need a kohen. So if by an animal you don't need a kohen, but nevertheless kava leitzafein, but it needs to be on the north. So ben oif by a bird, right? It's done with the fingernail of the kohen. Shekava leikohen ein din shenikva leitzafein. For sure, you should need to be strict, and it should be done on the north.
Is this like for chatas as well?
Well, whether it's a chatas or an Eila, both of them you need a kohen.
But how could you learn something that comes from a chatas to a non?
Okay, well the Eila is for sure in the north, because even a chatas is learned from an Eila. And let's say it's a chatas. Just to keep it simple, let's say it's a chatas. If it would be an Eily, it would be the same thing, because the Eily is on the north also, and an Eily is with a Kayan. In both of them, the shechita of the animal doesn't need to be with the Kayan, but the Malika on the bird does need a Kayan. So if the animal needs to be on the north, and you don't have restrictions on the animal who can slaughter it, but you have a restriction on the place that it needs to be on the north. So by the bird, we have restrictions on who can do it. For sure, it should be in the holiest place on the north. So the Gemara asks, 1 second, it's not a good kal v'chaimer, because I have certain restrictions by the animal that I don't have by the bird. In other words, leniencies by the bird. Mala ben soin, sheken kavalei keli. By an animal, I need to use a knife, a holy knife. However, by the bird, I don't need a keli. I don't need a vessel, a utensil to slaughter. I use the fingernail. So I can't learn a kal v'chaimer that the birds should have been on the north, and then comes along Oisai to tell me that they're not on the north. I never would have thought they're on the north anyway, because the fact that animals are on the north, that's because they have special halachas that you need a vessel, a utensil to slaughter. But by a bird, you don't need a utensil, you don't need the north. So I don't need Oisai to teach me that it doesn't need to be on the north. Oisai, it, right? So now we're up to, remember, we had Nachshon slaughtering a bird on Pesach, right? We're up to Pesach. Ela Oisai batzafin vein Pesach batzafin. It's on the north, but the Korban Pesach is not on the north. Gemara says Pesach midur Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov nafka. Pesach, you don't need to tell that to me that it's on the that it's not on the north because I have a word Oisai. I know that from Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov did not say a lot, according to the Gemara. It says Mishnase kav v'naki. He has just a small basket, but everything that he says is perfect. The halacha is always like Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. There's actually 2 Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakovs, but in one of the sources that I have, it says that it's referring to both of them. That Mishnase kav v'naki. So we know it from Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. The Tanya was taught in a Braisa. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer, Yochel yeh Pesach Tan Safin. I could have thought that the Korban Pesach needs to be on the north. V'dinhu. And it's actually logical that it should be on the north. The Korban Pesach is like a shlamim. You know, there's 2 categories of sacrifices. Kodshe Kodshim and Kodshim Kalim. Kodshe Kodshim usually only have 1 day and 1 night to eat them. Kodshim Kalim, you usually have 2 days and a night to eat them. So it's more lenient. Kodshe Kodshim is on the north, and Kodshim Kalim is anywhere in the courtyard. Korban Pesach is Kodshim Kalim. So it goes into the category where it does not need to be on the north. But Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov is saying, I could have thought that it should be on the north. Why? Because if I have a burnt offering, I don't have a set time when to offer it. I can offer it any time during the day. So, however, kavala tzafan, but the oila needs to be slaughtered on the north. When it comes to time, there's no limit. There's no restriction. When it comes to space, it needs to be specifically in the north, the oila. So Pesach, shekavala is man l'shchitasei, that there is a set time for a Korban Pesach. When does it need to be? And specifically in the afternoon of the 14th of Nisan. You only have like a small time place to put it in. So any din shekavala tzafan, should we not be? Is it not a kal v'chaimer? Is it not all the more so that it should have a set space, a set place to be done? It says 1 second. You're comparing it to an oila. You're saying it's because this is more strict because it has a set time. Mala oila sheken kolol. An oila is more strict. An oila is entirely burnt. Korban Pesach is eaten. So an oila needs to be brought on the north. It has that strictness that it needs to be burnt. You can't compare a Korban Pesach that's eaten to an oila. Gemara says, okay, well, see what happens here when we try to do comparisons, and especially with the kal v'chaimer, what we'll do is we'll say we'll find a certain strictness in one thing, and we'll say that in this thing there's a certain strictness. Yeah, let's do that. I have two things here. So, if this is bigger and it has a stem, though, let's do this. If this is smaller and it has a stem to hold it up, for sure this is bigger, for sure it needs a stem to hold it. Okay, it's obvious. It needs it. If this has a stem to hold it and it's so small, for sure this is bigger. So we say something like this. We say, if an Eily, make this the Eily. If the Eily, which you don't have a set time when to slaughter it, but it needs to be on the north, so this, which has a set time when to slaughter, for sure it needs to be on the north. It's much more strict. You see, you can only slaughter in that little time slot. For sure it needs to have the strictness of that. So 1 second. You thought this was lenient, but it has that one strictness. The truth is that this is very, very strict. This is entirely burnt, and this is eaten. So the fact that this is on the north is a specific reason. It's because it's burnt. It has a strictness to it. You can't compare. It doesn't have any of those qualities that this has, and therefore you can't say that, this needs to be on the north just like that one. Because that one was very strict. So then we would say like this. Well, we'll bring in something else. Can't use this. We'll bring in a korban chatas. You see, the Eily was entirely burnt. That's why it needs to be on the north. This is not entirely burnt. It doesn't need to be on the north. 1 second. You think that the determining factor is that it's entirely burnt? That's what makes it on the north? What about a korban chatas? Korban chatas is eaten by the kohanim, and it's also on the north. So you lose that factor that it's entirely burnt. So if the factor that determines if it needs to be slaughtered on the north is not that it's entirely burnt, that's not the factor, then let's include the korban pesach. Right? The korban pesach is not entirely burnt. It should also be on the north, just like the chatas. The Gemara says 1 second. Malachatas shekein mechaperes al chai v'krisis. The korban chatas is very, very strict. It has a power to atone for very severe punishments, chai v'krisis, someone that eats forbidden fat or something. So there's a very strict punishment for that. And the chatas atones for that. The korban pesach doesn't atone. So the chatas needs to be slaughtered on the north because of the weight that it carries. But the korban pesach doesn't have that. And it says, well, may asham. Asham is on the north. And it doesn't atone for chai v'krisis. It atones for other sins, but not such strict sins. So we'll bring the korban pesach as well, that it needs to be on the north, just like the asham. It says, mal asham skin kachi kachim. 1 second. The asham is kachi kachim. It's the holy of holies. It has only 1 day and 1 night to eat it. It has all those other qualities. Korban pesach is not. So Gemara says, once you've said this, so now the Eily, the chatas, and the asham all have that quality. Now you found the common factor of all of them, and it leaves the pesach out. Mikulunami shekain kachi kachim. Okay, so now we have no source that the korban pesach should be on the north. So we have no source that the korban pesach needs to be on the north. This is what Rabbi Ben Yaakov is teaching us. So why do I need Oisai by the korban of the Nasi to teach me that you don't have, only it is on the north, but not the korban pesach? Rabbi Ben Yaakov tells me I have no source that the korban pesach should be on the north anyway. Right? So now we're stuck. We tried that Oisai is excluding Nachshan, it's excluding it's excluding the sheichet. The sheichet doesn't need to be on the north. It's excluding the bird, and it's excluding the korban pesach, and each one of them wasn't necessary to use. We go back to the first one. It's not the first one, to the second one. That the sacrifice needs to be slaughtered on the north, but the sheichet, the one who's slaughtering, doesn't need to be on the north. The kakashlach midir Rabachia nafka, you asked, we already know that from Rabachia that learns it from the korban Eily. So Gemara says, So Rabbi wasn't really telling me that the sheikhet doesn't need to be on the north. Elahachi kamar. Rabbi really meant to say that the one that's receiving the blood needs to be the kayan that's holding the vessel to catch the blood. He needs to stand on the north. Where it says, 1 second, that's what Rabbi is telling me? Mekabel mi v'lakach v'lakach nafka. The Gemara learns that v'lakach means you divide the word in half, and it's loy. V'lakach is lamed vav, loy kach. That you take him to the north. Who's the him? The one that's receiving the blood. So we know it already that the one that's receiving the blood needs to be on the north. It says lakach v'lakach le'mashmalei. Rabbi didn't learn from lakach v'lakach. He didn't think that was teaching me this point. So therefore, he needed to learn it from Isai by the Eily, that the one that's receiving the blood needs to stand on the north. But where do we know that the sheikhet doesn't need to be on the north? That we learn from the Sar of the Nasi. Okay, we've concluded what we do with the Isai. Okay. Now we go back to what we discussed. That you're chayiv. It's a quote from the Mishnah. Whenever you have these colon in the actual Gemara. Amen. Oh. Whenever you have, give back my... No one should think these are sacrifices.
The Mila, no, it's all sacrifice.
So this is, we quote the Mishnah and now we discuss it. Amar Rav Papa. I'm sorry. If someone brings a carbon mincha that's chametz, he's chayiv on the kneading of it. If he kneads the dough of the carbon mincha and it's leavened, it was more than 18 minutes of left alone, he's chayiv on arranging it. You know, they make the bread nice. V'alaf and on baking it. Each one is a prohibition. Amar of Papa. So this Gemara is very interesting. Rav Papa says, Afa loikashdayim. If he bakes it, he's chayiv twice malchus. Achas al richasa v'achas al afiyasa. I'm imagining that as he's putting it into the oven, you need to set it up. They used to bake it. They used to stick it to a wall. It used to be stuck on the wall. The bread would stick on the wall, or there was some sort of rack there that they would bake it on. But it needed to be placed there and put into position. So when it's put into position, that would be the carefulness of putting it on. Would actually be arranging the bread in its shape. So the fact that he is arranging it when he's putting it in the oven, that little bit of arrangement that it